Hello everyone, I'm DeAngelo with That's Entertainment, and this is your video review of Darksiders by Vigil games. It's odd to think that in the beginning of the year a fantastic title would come out. You'd think that you'd have to wade through some disappointing games before you found your diamond in the rough, but in the beginning of 2010, Vigil Games released a monster of a title, Darksiders. The game came out of nowhere and established a strong presence almost immediately. But is Darksiders worthy of its praise, or does it rehash too many ideas to find its own identity? Chances are this video review isn't the first place you've heard about this game. You likely already know how much Darksiders borrows from other games. Whether or not you see it as a derivative or as an homage is up to you. The story, however, is fairly original, or at least as far as the chronicles of an epic war between heaven and hell can go. Heaven and hell have been fighting since the beginning of time. To preserve the balance of power between the two, an intermediary group called the Charred Council forced an armistice. Breaking the treaty would result in the punishment afflicted by the Council's champions, the Four Horsemen. While heaven and hell hold to the truce, the kingdom of man appears, and grows stronger. The Charred Council predicts that man will play a large part in the end war. Until humans are strong enough, however, war must be averted. When the game starts, Armageddon has begun preemptively. You play as one of the Four Horsemen, War, who goes to Earth to bring order to the chaotic battle between the groups. However, none of his brothers in arms have arrived, and the seventh seal, which must be broken for the end war to take place, was not. Somehow tricked, War is blamed and punished by the Council, and stripped of his powers. He narrowly avoids execution by offering to find the culprit who has started the apocalypse early. 100 years passed between the initial conflict and his trial, and Earth is an empty husk of what it was. Regardless, War sets forth to gain back his power, and discover the truth. Throughout the title, the protagonist isn't really fleshed out, and neither are many of the other characters. It may be that the developers were saving backstory and the like for the game's sequel, however.
Here comes the welcome party.
Darksiders is already well known for its mix of elements of other popular games. From Zelda to God of War to Portal and beyond, it seems like Darksiders lacks any originality. This isn't a bad thing though, as the game weaves them all together wonderfully. The inventory system and dungeon crawling within the game screams Legend of Zelda. Equipment is needed to proceed through the game, and the style of the items even seems like the NES Classic. Generally, the equipment has some major involvement in the dungeon it is found within, also reminiscent of the game it emulates. Health increases by collecting life stones, 4 pieces, which gives you another bar of health. Combat is performed as your standard button masher. In this regard, it is compared to Devil May Cry and God of War, but the basic skeleton of the control seems almost more like Dynasty Warriors than anything. Stringing together button presses produces tons of possible attacks, and as your enemies die, their souls help to increase your wrath, kind of like magic power, which seems like Musou from the Dynasty Warriors series. You can take out your enemies with a flourish, a la God of War, though with Darksiders there are no quick time events to perform. It's a single button kill. There are a few other nods to games, but it can be, in its majority, attributed to Zelda and games like God of War. Though the content of Darksiders is decidedly dark, the art style is rather colorful. It's not exactly bright and cheery, but it's not an overly gothic game either. The graphics aren't spectacular, but they are pretty close. The style of the characters you come into contact with are pretty interesting too. When you look at the game, it almost seems like a cross between the upcoming Dante's Inferno and Brutal Legend. Screen tearing has been noted in the Xbox 360 version of the game, but it doesn't affect the gameplay, and you'll probably just accept it with a shrug. The sound has its ups and downs. While the voice acting is brilliant, the sounds and music are a little bit repetitive and uninspired. They don't detract from the game, but they don't provide very much either. Regardless, you want to keep playing through the game to see the next area, or watch the next cutscene.
Took me seriously.
As with all good things, they must come to an end. And though Darksiders is consistently good throughout the playthrough, it feels as if it's over too soon. There aren't too many reasons to go back through either. Nothing really changes the second time through. Treasure and items are in the same place, enemies act the same, and you still need to push through the story at the same pace as the first time. You'll just have to enjoy the game thoroughly the first time through. For a game to strike up such a big reaction this early in the year, it seems like there has to be something hidden beneath the surface of Darksiders that's wrong with the game. There are no strings attached here though. The game is clever and fun all the way through. As the year presses on, we'll see how well it stacks up against its competition. That's Entertainment awards Darksiders a score of 9 out of 10.